You're listening to Soundside on KUOW. Resetting here because we've been doing ongoing flood coverage now for days on KUOW for a week. You're listening to listener-supported KUOW in Seattle. And this is Soundside on KUOW. Coming up on the show today, we are going to be listening. We're going to be checking in with the Department of Homeland Security's plan to purchase 6 Boeing 737 planes and what it could mean for immigration enforcement and deportation. That's coming up in about 20 minutes. But first, we go live to Pacific, Washington, where approximately 10,000 people, not in Pacific. Pacific has about 2,000 people under evacuation notice. 10,000 people is the number for the statewide evacuation situation across western Washington. In King County, 2 levees have been breached in the last 48 hours. As of this morning, again, 2,000 residents in the city of Pacific, east of Tacoma, are under a go-now evacuation order after a levee breach near the White River. That is, again, prompting that evacuation notice. And we heard from Governor Bob Ferguson and King County Executive Gurmai Zahalai that this is an unfolding and unpredictable situation. In a couple of minutes, we're going to hear more from the King County Department of Natural Resources and Parks about how local levees are holding up, particularly as we've seen again in Tukwila and Pacific, issues with those levees holding. But Casey Martin is on the scene there in Pacific right now, again at the White River. Casey, hello, and where are you at right now? Where's your location?
Hey, Libby. Yeah, I am just a little bit south of Auburn in Pacific, just a few blocks away from the White River, really close to an area called Pacific City Park, in an area with a few cul-de-sacs around here.
And what are you seeing? What's going on?
Right now, the streets are full of water. Every little side street looks like a mini river with brown water. The water is a little bit higher than the sidewalks now. Some people are trying to walk on the sidewalks, but that's no longer an option. There's a lot of abandoned cars, either in the middle of the road or on the side where people tried to drive through, and then the cars they stalled out. And I'm looking at a tow truck right now that was actually on its way to save one of those cars, and it stalled out. So now that tow truck is dead in the water, sitting right there in the road. People who evacuated here early this morning, and now a few of them are out trying to check on their houses, just kind of see what state their house is in right now.
Yeah, what happened with that evacuation? I mean, how did that unfold?
Yeah, it was chaotic. People described that, it was very early this morning. First, police knocked on some people's doors, and then around 2:30, 3 in the morning, a helicopter flew overhead and broadcast a message, came booming down from the sky, telling people, leave now, grab your things, and get out of your house immediately. Most people in this neighborhood that I've talked to did do that. Many are at a nearby community center. It's not too far away. It's a little uphill. And others are trying desperately to find a hotel room or a place to sleep tonight.
What are you hearing from people that you're talking with there, Casey?
Yeah, people are very stressed and worried, as you might imagine. It was a frantic exit. It's not how anybody wants to wake up at 3 in the morning, a helicopter telling you to get out of your house. People immediately grab their pets, threw them in the back of their car. They're trying to find a place that they can take their animals. Not every motel or not every shelter will allow pets. And I just spoke with a guy who went back because he knew that his chicken coop was flooding. And so he just went and waded through knee-high water to save all of his chickens. So
wow.
People are pretty stressed. Some people went through a 2009 flood here, but they're really kind of checking on their homes right now.
And are people following the calls to evacuate? We just heard from the governor, just really emphasizing that when you do get that go now order to not wait and to heed that order. What are people responding to there, or are they responding there, Casey?
Yeah, most people in this neighborhood, because it's so close to the river, they did leave. They got out this morning, and they're just now starting to filter back a little bit, really just to check on their homes. But most people I've talked to said, when you live so close to the river, you have to be prepared to leave, and you can't play around, and it's not worth risking it. So most people said that they left this morning, and, they looked to the left and the right, and they saw their neighbors also leaving this morning. So most people, did avoid the peak of the flood.
And Casey, you've been out reporting on flooding for much of this last week. I want to ask, what has stuck with you as you've been reporting this week?
It's really following those evacuation orders. I've talked to people who did not leave, and then they said they ended up regretting it, that they waited too long, or that they got their car stuck, or weren't able to get their car out. And people who did leave, said that they're very grateful that they heeded that advice, they got out. Not every neighborhood is flooding currently, but with so many rivers in this area, the Green River, the White River areas, a lot of people say, even if it's not my neighborhood that's flooding, will we be next? Will my house be next that a helicopter is flying above telling me to leave? So there's a lot of feeling of just unease until all this rain stops.
And before we go, I mean, what about the work being done on this flood barrier? What do we know about how they're trying to shore this up?
Yeah, I have not been right there quite yet. I do know that King County Department of Natural Resources is out there. I know that they have those nylon soaking sacks that can kind of patch it up, a little bit, but there's still plenty of water still flowing through the streets right now.
Okay, that's Casey Martin in Pacific, where the White River has breached a levee and about 2,000 people are under an evacuation order. There have been multiple broken flood barriers in South King County over the last 48 hours. A Go Now evacuation order was issued to parts of Tukwila and Kent yesterday after the Desimone levee was breached around 11:30 a.m. That evacuation order was lifted yesterday evening. I want to turn now to Josh Baldi, the Water and Land Resources Division Director for King County's Department of Natural Resources and Parks. His department is monitoring these levees. Hi, Josh. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us on a very busy day.
Hi, Libby. Thank you. Long-time listener, first-time interviewee. I wish it was not under these circumstances.
Yeah, certainly. Agree on that. Thank you for being here. This morning we already talked with Casey Martin, who was live in Pacific, where about 2,000 people had evacuated. What is going on there along the White River? What's prompted this concern, and what's going on with the levee?
Yeah, thank you for asking about the White. Folks may not know the small town of Pacific, really important community to us. It sits right adjacent to the White River. It has been protected for many years now. We worked on a couple of major flood improvement projects down there. One of them is actually helping out considerably now, but what was breached last night, literally at 1 o'clock in the morning, we had our flood patrol out surveying what we call HESCO barriers. Think of them as very large, massive sandbags, round circular sandbags. They are stacked there on a park right adjacent to the city, diverting the flow of the White River actually toward a restoration project that we completed several years ago, which is taking most of the flow. White River is flowing at historic levels. We have never seen it flow at this level for this period of time. It is a river that is managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, the Mud Mountain Dam. They're doing their level best to hold floodwaters back, but given the atmospheric rivers that have pummeled the Pacific Northwest over the last week, they are maxed out. So they are trying to maintain the integrity of the dam. I will say when this breach happened last night, which I'd actually like to explain because it's quite dramatic.
Yeah, please.
They actually, so I'll tell you the whole story. Our flood patrol was in the field observing the barriers. It had just been surveyed earlier yesterday morning by the Corps, by the county, by the vendor of these, what we call HESCO barriers, and our professionals. We felt that it was solid, but that we needed to have some contingency plans in order, so we were working on those. Flood control was out there nearly at 1 o'clock in the morning, saw a small seep, a bit of a leak, and literally watched the breach unfold before their very eyes. They immediately notified the Emergency Operations Center, who declared an evacuation. They went door to door. We were supported by the Sheriff's Office, by the Corps, and others to evacuate folks. Initially 100 residents in the area. It sounds like it has since expanded in the flooded area there. And then we immediately began repairs. So it was really and I will say then the Corps has also lowered the releases from the Mud Mountain Dam for a period of hours prior to this new rain event coming in. So it gave us a little bit of time to complete those repairs. I do not have real time at the moment, but we basically were able to fix that breach, evacuate those people and there's no doubt the actions last night of our folks, of the Emergency Operations Center, others saved lives last night. It was pretty pretty remarkable.
Wow. I'm talking with Josh Baldi, the Water and Land Resources Division Director for King County's Department of Natural Resources and Parks, about the levee breach in Pacific on the White River. And Josh, in Tukwila yesterday, the Desimone levee was breached. What is going on there? I understand that the evacuation order was lifted. Has that been repaired now to your satisfaction, to the county's satisfaction, that Desimone levee in Tukwila?
Libby, just a clarification there. The breach that happened in the Pacific are the HESCO barriers. It's a different type, so it's not a permanent barrier. But you are correct. The Desimone, there's a controversy. Is it Desimone, Desimone? We should get the family on here to clarify that for us. But
we've all been talking about that, yeah.
Yes, this is actually a levee that last week, again, our flood patrol was out, had identified signs of stress on this levee. Actually, let me take one step back.
Yeah.
I mentioned the flows on the White River, unprecedented. The flows on the Green that we are seeing at sustained levels. We actually had record flow on systems, and I would like to actually talk about a couple of the other river systems because while we are understandably focused on the White and the Green, which is where these concerns persist, we had record flows throughout all of our systems. What's different about this event for both the White and the Green, one, we've actually had peak flows. We haven't seen flows like this since before Howard Hansen Dam was built. So basically, President Eisenhower was president when we last recorded flows this high. But the core Howard Hansen Dam, much like the Mud Mountain Dam, they're doing their level best to maintain the integrity of that flood control facility. But they are having to release far more water than they would like because they are trying to protect the dam. Obviously, if the dam were to fail, that would be catastrophic at a level we don't even want to imagine.
But you're saying that they would like to hold more back, but they cannot in order to maintain that dam. Yeah.
So they are running at as high a level as they can. It's stressing the system here. They're aware of that, but if they're not letting out the water, things could get worse. So we are in close coordination with the Corps. I want to emphasize they are in a balancing act, and you've heard it from the governor, you've heard it from the executive, you've heard it from locals. The amount of coordination happening all up and down government right now is really quite remarkable. I've been in this business a long time and never seen anything quite like it. So I just want to put a plug in there. But they're running at very, very high levels, so we have not seen this levee system stress tested for such an extended period of time. We're in it for a week. We're probably going to be in it for another week. So what you have is these, earthen levee structures just being saturated and being under constant pressure. So we are seeing signs of those pressures. And that's what we were seeing early last week behind the Desimone levee. We mobilized crews to lay down what we call seepage blankets. It's basically layers of specified rock and sand on the backside of the levees in order to try fabric followed by this aggregate materials in order to shore up these levees. We had engineers on site and our roads division crew, special operations crew staged nearby because we were preparing to install additional seepage blankets on other parts of the Desimone level when it broke. So we, much like last night, it was almost real-time reaction in terms of responding to the threat. So I'm sure when you all first reported the levee breach, when we look at what we call the inundation maps, it is terrifying kind of the type of impacts this could have. We were fortunate to be able to mobilize very quickly and plug that hole. We are continuing to monitor that levee. We are monitoring about a half a dozen other hotspots. We actually have repairs happening in several other areas.
Yeah,
so
Josh, what other hotspots are you monitoring? Obviously, this is, not just in a couple of acute places like the flood barrier in Pacific and the levee in Tukwila. Where else are you watching closely?
Well, the work has been, let me shift actually to the Cedar for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
It also sustained high flows. Our colleagues at Seattle Public Utilities operate the Landsberg Dam there. That's a water diversion, but also serves as a dam control facility, a flood control facility. They also were originally having to run that at very high levels. They've been steadily lowering the flood pool, so we are out of what we call stage 4, which is severe flooding. We're now in the moderate, and as the waters receded, we saw extensive damage to the Cedar River Trail. In a couple of instances, threats to State Route 169, 2 spots in particular. Lower in the system, underneath the Cedar River Trail, is fiber optic, very important. So, so our crews, we actually completed one repair yesterday. We are about to start another repair farther upstream. Not a threat to the fiber optic or the trail, but certainly it's right on top of State Route 169. It's about a 40-foot scallop, very dramatic. It's going to be very tricky. We have our engineers and crews are mobilizing. We're working with the city of Renton on traffic control. It's inconvenient in terms of traffic and the like, because down to one lane has been. But obviously, this is a very important transportation corridor that we are trying to protect. We don't know if it will be successful, but we're going to do our level best to complete that over the next couple of days.
And Josh, that was the Cedar River and where? 167?
So it's east of 169. So
169. Got it.
Yeah, so it's east of Renton. So we are working with City of Renton quite closely. And all of these, whether it be the City of Pacific, Kent, Tukwila, Renton, we are coordinating very closely with all of our city partners, and obviously, as you've been hearing, with state partners, federal partners. I can't say enough about the coordination that's currently happening.
Josh Baldi is the Water and Land Resources Division Director for King County Department of Natural Resources. He's been talking to me about the flood barrier breach in Pacific, which has about 2,000 residents under evacuation right now on the White River, and the successfully mitigated breach of the Desimone levee, which was breached yesterday in Tukwila. That evacuation order has been lifted. Josh, anything else you want to leave us with that people should know about what you're watching for when it comes to levees and flood barriers?
Yeah, I just, we talked about 3 of our systems. We also have the Snoqualmie and the Tolt, which you often have reported on. We're expecting the Snoqualmie River to reach moderate flooding again tomorrow morning, about 4 in the morning. That had near record flows, not record, but very heavy flows as well, as did the Tolt. Those folks are starting to look at the damage sustained from the massive flows last week up in South Fork Skykomish. That's also in King County. So shout out to our residents in that neck of the woods. This is just really unprecedented. It's a historical event. I'm just super impressed with not just coordination, but how people have been listening to reports such as this and others, staying safe. If there's water, people are listening to the news and responding. It really is an effort, not just on behalf of the government, but also our communities. And I just think that this is a really remarkable response, but we're not out of the woods yet. We're probably going to be dealing with this for another week. I've heard some people say, if you look at how fortuitous some of our staging was around some of these incidents, people sometimes say, I'd rather be lucky than good. I say, we're lucky, but we're also very good. The frontline workers, the folks responding to this is it's just really, truly remarkable.
Well, yeah, the fact that you had a crew there in Pacific watching the barrier as it was failing, and so you could be there in real time to respond right away. I mean, that is a pretty remarkable response. And, thank you.
Yeah. Shout out to our flood control, flood warning folks that are out there 24/7. King County Sheriff's Office said there's no doubt the actions of those individuals last night saved lives. So very proud to be working alongside those folks.
Josh Baldi with King County. Thanks again.
Thank you.
You're listening to Soundside on KUOW. If you are experiencing flooding in your home, if you've had to evacuate, if you are preparing to evacuate, preparing to have to go, if you have seen anything in your community that you can share with us, you can email us at soundside@kuow.org with your stories or questions. You can also head to our website to share stories there. That's at kuow.org. That's where we're collecting the latest information and reporting. Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 FM Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime online at KUOW.org or on your favorite podcast app.